This is the current generation Nissan Patrol, the Y62. There's been plenty of rain here, so there is lots of sloppy mud. Now, this is going to be replaced in the not too distant future. In 2024, there is going to be a twin turbo petrol V6 engine replacing this V8. So does this V8 Patrol represent your last chance to get in one of these big beast four-wheel drives? And is it worth your consideration? Well, that's what we're here to find out, so stick around. If you want to know something in particular about this Patrol, that's fine. There are time codes on your screen, so you can skip ahead to the relevant section. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, there are chapter markers below. This is the Ti Spec Patrol. It's the entry-level 8-seater variant in a 2-Patrol range. Standard features include an 8-inch multimedia display with sat-nav, Bluetooth for hands-free phone use, and power-adjustable driver and front passenger seats, side steps and a stack of driver assist tech, as well as 18-inch alloy wheels. Price as tested for this Patrol is $82,810, and that includes the $650 you'll pay for metallic paint. We'll put the Patrol's dimensions up on screen just to give you an idea of its size, but in terms of styling, it's had a mild redesign. That front grille looks really good. I like that new badge, and the air vents either side are a little bit sleeker and a little bit sexier, but I'm not going to tell you what to think of it. You're an adult, I'm guessing, so make up your own mind. It has always had a great reputation as an off-road touring vehicle, and nothing has changed in the Patrol. We've got the third row seating down purely so we can fit in our vehicle recovery tracks, our max tracks, first aid kit, recovery kit and air compressor and other bits and pieces. There's plenty of room back here, and you also get some cargo tie-down points and a 12-volt power socket. I do have one small niggle though. Those third row seats don't fold quite flat. Not a big deal, but just enough to annoy me. Now, it is pretty obvious that I'm not as tall as a Harlem Globetrotter, but I'm probably about average, and I do have plenty of room in the second row, head, shoulders and knees. There's plenty of space back here, and I also have access to a stack of things, including this fold-down armrest with cup holders. There are 2 USB charge points in the back of the center console, as well as controls for the fans and the temperature. And also, as a second row passenger, you have sneaky access to the back of the center console, so you can get in and out of there, put away some gear. There are map pockets in the seat backs and also bottle holders in the doors. The Patrol's interior is a little bit divisive, and that's no more obvious than it is up front, because there is an abundance of this sort of glossy looking wood paneling, but all the leather, all the soft touch surfaces, I reckon it all comes together. It's a nice premium space with a fair chunk of practicality about it. There are a heap of storage spaces. I'm talking about glove box in the doors. Here in this giant center console, you've got a few pop-up spaces here and there for your bits and pieces and your keys and your phone. What there isn't a lot of is tech though, because this is a tiny screen for starters. That is 8 inches only, and that's too small, I reckon, and it kind of tends to be a little bit muddy looking when you're looking through the camera or you're trying to operate the apps on that screen. And this area here is really a confusion of buttons and dials and knobs, and it's not quite clear what you should be operating when you hop into it. Because I have been in a Patrol before, I do know, and it was kind of easy for me to navigate my way around the controls and all those sorts of things, but it does feel pretty old. There's a CD player, I mean, that's as evidenced by that. And there is no Apple CarPlay, there is no Android Auto. I've struggled a little bit with Bluetooth connectivity with my phone, but that might just be me being an old codger. But all in all, otherwise, I kind of like the inside of the Patrol, and I like up front. The seats are comfortable and very supportive, and it's an easy space in which to spend a lot of travel time. The Patrol has a 5.6 litre V8 petrol engine, and that produces 298 kilowatts and 560 newton metres. It has a 7-speed automatic transmission, and in terms of off-road tech and mechanicals, it has a rear diff lock, it has full-time four-wheel drive, that's got high and low range gearing, and it has off-road driving modes. This is a big vehicle, but the steering is quite light, maybe a little bit too light. There's a real looseness to it, a bit too much play to it for my liking. But while steering is not quite as precise as I might like it, this engine is absolutely unreal. It really makes for a lively on-road drive. It's just, there's so much grunt on tap. It is unbelievable. And I'll say this many times in the video, so you're probably going to grow pretty sick of it, but it has such a really nice sound. And it's not only the sound, because there is so much power and torque accessible there across a pretty wide rev range, and it has a nice even-handed delivery. Throttle response is pretty good. That transmission is generally pretty cluey. It can get a little bit thrashy when you're on a long uphill stretch just trying to find the sweet spot, but otherwise it's okay. And when you do first drive a Patrol, you may be forgiven for expecting it to drive like a couch on wheels, but the thing is, it doesn't. Suspension is really well sorted out. It's quite firm. Actually, it's got independent suspension, coil springs and double wishbones. Now, whatever concerns you think you may have about this Patrol, it's big, it's cumbersome, it drinks a lot of petrol, all of those will be washed away once you get a chance to drive it, because once you experience this big torquey V8 engine, you'll forget all of those things, and they're non-issues anyway once you get used to it, and you'll just have the time of your life. Sure, it's not perfect, but it is very comfortable on road. Now, chances are, if you're considering a Patrol as your next four-wheel drive wagon, then you tow stuff. You tow boats or caravans or even horse trailers or something like that. So it's handy to know that its unbraked towing capacity is 750 kilograms and its maximum brake towing capacity is 3,500 kilograms. Now, it's a great idea if you're going to tackle any sort of mud holes or anything like that, any water crossing, to check the depth first. And in checking the depth, you're also checking whether there are any obstructions, any sticks, branches, logs, or any sort of rubbish people have left around. I've seen shopping trolleys in mud holes out in the middle of the bush. So it's a good idea to have a check. See what the surface is like. This is pretty muddy up top, but there's a nice firm surface underneath. So we should be okay with all-terrain tyres. We're going to give it a crack, but yeah, as always, have a check before you go in. It's a great idea. The Patrol is at its very heart a big four-wheel drive wagon, and when you get off-road, that's where it finds its truly happy place. And on fast dirt tracks, it sits so nicely and it's so stable and sure-footed because it is a big beast. And that powerful on-track stance really lends itself to having a nice presence off-road. But the problem is, this is such a big vehicle that it doesn't feel quite as nimble or as graceful as some of the other large SUV wagons do. I don't know how they manage it, but they do. Perhaps it's in the steering, because the steering in the Patrol is a little bit light, it's a little bit too floaty, and you also at times feel like you're steering a school bus, maybe a minibus, around the bush. But that is a very minor niggle, because everything else about the Patrol is well suited and booted to four-wheel driving, to hardcore four-wheel driving. It's got dual range, high and low range gearing, and while it doesn't have the low down torque of something like a rival like the 300 series LandCruiser, it does really well with what it has, and it still has plenty. It's got 560 Newton meters of torque, and all of the other elements that you'd want in a four-wheel drive wagon are in the Patrol. The off-road tech is really good, the off-road traction control, the hill descent control, all of those sorts of things really do their work, and they work quietly, but they're very effective. if you pare it right back, the Patrol in its essence, it's mechanically one of the best off-road tourers around, but really beyond all the technology and beyond the rear diff lock and the off-road driving modes for sand, snow and rock, it all boils down to that engine, the big V8 petrol. And while the Patrol does well, even through this really sloppy mud that we're tackling today, it does have some flaws. For one, it never feels quite high enough. It just feels a little bit lower than some other large four-wheel drive wagons. And that's fine, because if you drive with care, if you drive with patience, you won't touch the undercarriage too much. But you've also got to watch out for the side steps. They obviously jut out a bit from the vehicle's body, and you have to make sure that you don't grind on the crest of rock steps or things like that. You don't use them like impromptu rock sliders, which they're certainly not intended as. And the Patrol's tyres, the standard Bridgestone Jewelers, they're perfectly reasonable on-road, but they really aren't suited for hardcore four-wheel driving, and their shortcomings have really been exposed today when we've been tackling quite sloppy mud, through mud holes, not a lot of traction, not a lot of agreeable surfaces or terrain, and they've been found wanting. But that is an easy fix. Just swap out those standard tyres with a set of decent all-terrains, and you've instantly made your Patrol even better a four-wheel drive than it was when you bought it. The Patrol's double wishbone suspension and coil springs, all independent, give it a little bit of stretch when you're going through deeper ruts and undulating terrain. And it also has Nissan's hydraulic body control system, something, I'm getting the name wrong, but what effectively works as a sway bar and a sway bar disconnect. It tightens up on road to keep you more controlled when you're driving on firmer surfaces like blacktop, and it loosens up a little bit more when you're off-road, just to give the whole suspension setup a little bit more flex and allow you a little bit more articulation to try and get a tyre to the dirt as you're going through the rough stuff. In terms of safety, the Patrol has plenty of driver assist tech, including stuff that's really handy for four-wheel driving, such as the around view monitor, which gives you a view to the front and to the sides, just so you can check where you are on the track. But what the Patrol doesn't have right now is an ANCAP safety rating, because at this point in time, it remains untested. Official fuel consumption is 14.4 litres per 100 kilometres, and that's on a combined cycle. On test, we recorded actual fuel consumption of 22.9 litres per 100 kilometres, but remember, we did lots of low-range four-wheel driving. The Patrol has a 140 litre fuel tank, so going by those fuel use figures, we could reasonably expect a driving range of about 560 kilometres on a full tank, and that's factoring in a safe distance buffer of about 50 kilometres. The Patrol has a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and 7 years of roadside assistance. Service intervals are scheduled for every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever occurs soonest. There is also cap price servicing available, and that covers the first 6 scheduled services. The Patrol remains a very decent all-rounder. It's comfortable on-road, it's capable off-road, and that V8 engine is unreal in a good way. It's refined and it's great value for money. And in base spec TI grade, this is probably the sweet spot for the Patrol, because you get a nice mix of practical and premium, even if the interior is a little bit 1970s style posh. But what do you reckon? Have your say in the comments section below.